Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to our subscriber game as we continue with round 1 with match 4 between Furinkazan versus Triatomiclight. Now Furinkazan on the green side has some Nanman generals. We have Meng Huo and Zhu Rong, husband and wife combo with a unique passive ability that will give each other damage resistance, which is quite interesting. And then we have Zhang Jiao joining them. So, looking for a little lore connection between these three? We can make up a story where Zhang Jiao didn't actually die of sickness during his failed Yellow Turban Rebellion, but actually escaped south, where he spread his way of the Dao, way of the peace, to the Nanman faction and converted these tribal leaders to now fight with him against the Han faction. But on a more serious note, we'll take a look at the unit composition here. Meng Huo is actually running 6 units of Javelin Spear Guards, which are excellent units from the Nanman faction, that's capable of both spear damage, formations, and javelin range damage at close range. Now these javelins are probably the highest armor piercing range projectiles in the game, and that means they can kill generals really fast if you're not careful. And since they can adapt formations, if the army has a commander, I'm actually not sure how formation would work here. I assume being high level as a Nanman general might actually give you the formations, but I could be wrong here. But even without formations, they pretty much just lose the turtle ability, but they still have a shield and they can still advance pretty easily against the cavalry from the right side. And joining them, we have some cavalry support. We have the Jiazi Riders from Zhang Jiao here. Interesting, they went with this version instead of Messenger of Heaven, which would have double unit size, but still very effective melee cavalry, good counter to the range cavalry on the right. Obviously, the draft was blind on both sides, but overall, having melee cavalry is just a good counter to range units in general. Finally, closing things up, we have Zhu Rong with some very interesting unit choice here. We have 2 Worshipper of the Flame with the Flaming Mace. They're very fragile in that they will actually take a bunch of damage regardless range or melee, but if they do get a hit on you, you do get the burn debuff. You lose about 50% of your melee evasion and burn damage is applied, so they are quite strong. They are 3/4 unit size, and you might notice right now the units are running double or extreme unit size. It depends on the players themselves who are playing the game. The ultra funding only has to do with the cost of the unit, but not the actual size of the unit. This is depending on graphic settings of both players. Some players might not have such a good PC, so some games you're going to see max unit size being 120, some being 240, some being 160. But overall, it doesn't really make a big difference in terms of multiplayer, as both sides will have the same unit size in battle. And rounding out the army composition, we have some Nanman warriors. 3 of them, which is why I'm a little confused. Because with 3 of them, you can probably get a more premium unit. Especially looking at the upgrades, we have 3 upgrades put into those Worshipper of the Flame, which is a little weird. Maybe take away those money. We could have got an elephant, one that could provide a bit of a boost in the Nanzhong elephant, 3 different songs to boost the army. That could probably be more useful, and elephants in general can destroy infantry if used properly. But anyways, great armor composition, or army composition from the left side here. And on the right, Triatomiclight is running a full cavalry comp. This one is closer to the intended method of a full cavalry comp because we have Zhang Fei. Now Zhang Fei has his roar, which will eliminate 100 points of morale from your army. If your unit are not unbreakable, and you do not have a general that can boost morale, and that can easily just be a commander, because there's 2 abilities on the commander skill tree that can give your units unbreakable to stop the effect of Zhang Fei's roar if you use it before he roars. If he roars on you and you're ready routing and then you give it away, it doesn't break the route. But the thing about Zhang Fei's roar is it only lasts 15 seconds. If you cannot get your cavalry units on top of the routing unit, they will easily bounce back as though nothing has happened. because morale damage isn't actual damage. So the trick here for the army composition on the right is actually hold back the cavalry. Don't engage them. Have Zhang Fei find an opportunity in the middle of enemy spear units, roar, or actually draw in the enemy cavalry as well, roar, have the units on the left route entirely, because no one's unbreakable on the left in terms of units. The generals are unbreakable. I believe Meng Huo is definitely unbreakable. Zhang Jiao is probably unbreakable as well. But the units are not unbreakable. If they do break, then have the cavalry come in and chase, and that's an easy win. But if that doesn't play out correctly because Zhang Fei only has one roar, then this strategy could fall apart very quickly. But overall, looking at the money situation, it seems like they didn't have a good unit to recruit on Huang Fusong, who's just running to melee cav, probably to counter any sort of potential range. In this case, not a lot of that. And they upgraded most of the units, including the Lance Cavalry and the Tiang Hunters. Not a bad choice. Extra attack rate, range attack rate on the Tiang Hunters, and a little bit extra morale on the Lance Cavalry. Probably could have lowered the quality of Zhang Fei's cavalry and just recruited a bit more cavalry perhaps on Huang Fusong, even if they're just Lancer militia. I think having more quantity here to do the chase down, if you're going for a morale tactic, might be better. But enough with our analysis, let's see how these players actually play it out in battle. So let's jump over in game. Alrighty, as we hop into game here, we can see that both sides has lined up pretty much on their own side. It's a little bit of conservative placement of the ranged Tiang Hunters in the back, I guess in case the enemy has some sort of guerrilla deployment movement behind. But first things first, let's take a look at the generals. Level 3 Meng Huo, nothing wrong there. And it seems like he's on a horse, not on elephant. You do have that choice. You have to pay more for the elephant, and you will change your skills to that of the elephant. Now to be honest, Meng Huo's skills are not terrible. We have a roar with very long cooldowns, but it's still a nice morale hit. And we also have Crippling Blow, which is actually quite powerful. Then Zhang Jiao is also rank 3. He wants to get himself killed for that active ability to give invincibility on all nearby units for the next 60 seconds. Very powerful. And finally, Zhu Rong here, who's actually only tier 1. Bronze Spear and Bronze Horse. So now I really question whether you needed to bring these 3 Nanman warriors. Because if you had saved the money and given her the level up, you would have picked up 2 more active abilities and much better weapons. She gets her own flaming mace at rank 3. That is a very powerful weapon. One that I rank as S tier in the game. Probably the best weapon in the game. And she's going to be missing out on that. Potentially unbreakable as well. So I think that's a huge loss. And by the way, this is the Power of Love, the passive buff between this husband and wife combo that gives them 25% damage resistant, which would make her even better with the flaming mace, but unfortunately we don't have that. But they are also immune to fatigue due to that. On the other side, in the red, we have Triatomiclight with Taishi Ci, 3rd tier, every skill available including Hail of Arrows. Let's see how that's used. Ma Chao, only 2nd tier, but skill wise, not a big loss. We end up with Roar, which is what we want, and also Flame of the Phoenix. He's missing out on his increased speed ability, which is not that important. Zhang Fei here is rank 3 because you want the Roar, Blazing Roar. This is very crucial to this entire composition. If used well, this could be a very fast win. If used incorrectly and you just waste the Blazing Roar, then Zhang Fei is not a great Vanguard general because you don't have a small Roar to fall back on with unlimited use with very short cooldowns, and you also don't have a splash ability as you end up with a dueling Thundering Strike. That really leaves you wanting here in terms of clearing enemy units. So let's see how this battle plays out. Ooh, very active charge. I mean, it makes sense. There is no range here. If they stay put, they might get caught with the archers coming to harass. Now, one thing with Ma Chao leading the way instead of having, say, Sima Ying, is they won't have fire arrows, so there's no threat to the Nanman forces in terms of getting burned up in the forest here, which usually would cripple the Nanman faction as they take double fire damage. And the cavalry is very active, which is, yeah, surprising. You should pull back because you should get your units to be coordinated. You don't want to send in your melee against the bulk of enemy forces without support from the range. Have the range open up will be a good option. You can see all the cavalries being sent out to charge at the enemy cavalry, or they're getting swapped. They're trying to chase down the general. They're sending a few units over to stall the enemy range, but honestly, anyone going over, it's sending them to a suicide mission because they cannot catch up to the enemy units. Ooh, we got action. We got a lot of cavalry collapsing here in the forest. I would favor the red side here. Triatomiclight right here with all his shot cavalry will do fairly well against these melee. And you can use the small roars and the smashes to... Oh, Zhang used it. Not against the spear. That is a waste. Because against cavalry, the issue is in the next 15 seconds, how can you get your cavalry to chase them? They're just going to bounce back with full health. That is unfortunate. Oh, they are Messenger of Heaven. I thought they were Jiazi. Ah, right. Cavalry 60 unit. That's right. So they're not Jiazi Raiders. They're Messenger of Heaven, so they are double unit. My mistake on the pre-battle analysis. But here comes the infantry, and Zhang Fei doesn't have a roar anymore. And I think Furinkazan's doing a great job. The javelin's coming in, and even though she's a lot weaker because she's tier 1, she just needs to stick on him, so you cannot use Hail of Arrows. That is the key here. Even if she dies, if he doesn't get Hail of Arrow off, that's a big win against this infantry. Because think about how much damage you can do. These are not getting microed at all. They're just sitting there shooting at these units coming to them. So that's a bit unfortunate as well. And the front line's collapsing. Zhang Fei's collapsing because he overchased into enemy cavalry. In 15 seconds, you can't chase down cavalry, right? They're just going to get a clean escape. They're not even fatigued or tired. Messenger of Heaven, 120 speed. Nothing can catch them. And they end up bouncing back without losing any damage. And now it's just all the melee cav is going away. This is not going to be pretty. Now, many of these cavalry will bounce back. The generals, I'm not sure. I think they took quite a beating, especially since he's only tier 2. Zhang Fei will probably bounce back once at least. Taishitsi is full health. He's strong, right? Both of them, despite the bonus to damage resistance, she just doesn't have a strong enough weapon. Meng Huo with the gold tier actually doesn't get that many good weapon stats either. Sworn Brothers technically not that strong. He does have a good amount of attack speed boost that will make up for some of the dueling sword weakness. As long as Zhuong doesn't die, right? She just needs to be on the field. Even during the rout, if she just hides, don't go back. Her biggest value is sneak around, throw a dagger, hide, and give him the 25%, damage resistance. Zhang Jiao should be actively fighting. Alright, they're just looping around, right? Whatever unit you send over there, it's not going to stop these guys. They weren't being microed earlier. Now they are. Meng Huo is giving a debuff against them. She's routing again. Zhang Fei's bounced back. But unfortunately, the faster and stronger enemy nearby, losing currently. Morale, morale's collapsing here. He didn't get a single Hail of Arrow off. Zhang Fei could snipe Lady Zhuang right here. But without a roar, Zhang Fei's pretty much useless. Zhang Fei has low morale, and that roar is basically all in. You wanted to roar in a situation like this, and then chase after the spear. Oh, we got one off. One Hail of Arrows. Only one volley before we got stabbed, so that broke the animation. And now I think that's over. He just couldn't get a clean shot, and now I think he's just going to rout when the army routs here. They're not pulling away either. They're getting stuck in melee. Yeah, but technically these 3 units are not needed. If perhaps, we're being picky here. Furinkazan clearly is winning this one. Pretty true to his name. For those of you who don't know, Furinkazan, obviously Japanese, was the short version of the banner used by Takada, I believe, which obviously in Shogun 2, the cavalry warlord, the red faction. It stands for Wind, Forest, Fire, Mountain, and it's a line from The Art of War, which is a Chinese book, obviously. Sun Tzu wrote it. And it's to tell your armies to be as swift as wind, as gentle as the forest, as fierce as fire, and as stable as the mountains. And they're doing it. They're very stable. This is great. This Javelin Spear Guards, they do get formations here, which is very useful. I think as long as the commanding general is tier 3, the formation is given to them. They didn't even have to use it. The tricky thing about the Javelin is they only fire when you're moving. So if you do circle, they don't work like, Vanguard units where you can just square up and shoot the cavalry. You have to keep moving. So like, if you want to counter Tail Hunters, just go into Turtle and just stretch them way out and just press against the Tail Hunters. There's nothing they can do to you. But in this case, there's nothing they can do to Messenger of Heaven either. Melee Cav does well against them. As long as you stall them, they don't even have to win. They just have to keep them here. Once the army gets here, it's over. Taishitsu bounce back. Maybe a Hail of Arrows. There's so many opportunities here. The Roar, the Hail of Arrows. You just gotta get your generals in a position where they can succeed. And unfortunately, a little bit of impatience with the cavalry situation. They were already winning that fight too. They actually changed the winning situation into one they're gonna lose because it was... Oh, that's way too far. That doesn't do much, right? Because you had shot cavalry lined up against melee cav. That was a winning condition. Zhang Fei just had to slam, have Ma Chao do a roar, do a slam with Flame of Phoenix, and just wait till your cavalry went out before the enemy infantry could make it up. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Now we're just in cleanup mode as we are chasing down generals, chasing down some pesky Tian Hunters, which have excellent morale actually. And well, they're not going to last very long even with good morale. There are just too many enemy units and they're starting to break now. Army loss will kick in once there's only a couple left. This one you probably don't have to chase. You can leave one or two. They will usually just break by themselves when the rest of the army has broken. So just focus down on these three right here. I think a lot of mistake with Zhang Jiao users is every game so far we've seen Zhang Jiao being used, he's not being used aggressively enough. He should be suicide charging into the enemy first without any units. Get him killed. When he's about to die, send in your unit. Get the buff after that point. Having him end the battle with full health is not good, right? Send him after enemy general. If they don't want to kill you first, you get free hits. If they want to kill you first, your units gets invincible. But yeah, Messenger of Heaven, very, very fast. And since they're melee cav, 50% damage resistance against range, they could chase down Tail Hunters with ease. 94 versus 119. And the double unit side makes sure that they can win the fight afterward. They even have more charge bonus. Tail Hunters don't really charge well. The White Horse Fellows charge quite well, but that should be it. I think all the units... Oh, this one's going to get the army loss, and you don't have to chase the last one. You just got to process defeat. You'll figure it out soon enough. I would say in 16 seconds. This is basically him having another unit still stranded somewhere in combat against the Axe unit. That's why you see the Shield Breaker. But that was unfortunate. I think a couple misuse of key general skills that kind of ruined the composition. You basically gave the faster melee cav a way out instead of being kind of gelled in melee combat with the Roar, and you ended up using your key weapon against the enemy spear, right? Why does all cavalry comp work when enemy could just run spear? It's because you can have a morale advantage, and once you have a unit routing or general routing, even the cheapest shot cavalry can just maintain chase and make sure they never bounce back. In this case, that didn't play out. Let's take a look at post-battle. It's going to be a quick look because I think this one was rather one-sided. Alright, so you can see the Tail Hunters did their damage, right? And the melee cav also did their damage. Now, all the numbers are inflated because we're playing on extreme unit size for this battle, and all the units are 240. You have double size on the cavalry for the Messenger of Heaven, so they're 120. There's just a lot of bodies to kill. So the number looks big, but think about it. If each unit is 240 and each cavalry is 60, these barely hit their mark. so it's not that crazy. The generals didn't actually have a big part in this. I mean, the hail of arrows, even the 2 really poorly used one, ended up with a lot of kills, but this is barely 1 unit of spear, right? They only did this much damage to 1 spear unit. The cavalry obviously had to chase, had to fight other cavalry, but this battle probably would have been a lot different if the generals were used a little bit differently. Not saying that Furinkazan used his units, entirely optimally. Zheng Jiang probably could have stayed hidden, didn't throw her dagger, at least I didn't see her throw her dagger, and Zhang Jiao didn't really put him out there. But overall, great fight. Congratulations to Furinkazan for moving on, and thanks again for Triatomiclight for playing it out, and we'll see you for the next match. Bye!